Alright, I'm finally done writing and recording the Shaddoll Advanced Guide script. Now all I gotta do is edit the video and... You son of a... Shaddolls is an archetype of flip monsters, fusion monsters, and a hell of a lot of grave effects. The whole idea is that the flip monsters all have flip effects, but if they are sent to grave by a card effect, they have a different effect that they can use instead. So even if the opponent removes them, they can still give you value. But we can actually take advantage of those grave effects pretty easily with fusion spells, since a fusion summon will count as using them for a card effect. We can get those grave effects proactively. The fusions themselves though, they give us a lot too. The cards we are going to be focusing our attention on most in this deck are the fusion monsters El Shaddoll Construct and El Shaddoll Winda, as well as the traps Shaddoll Schism and Shaddoll Incarnation. Shaddoll Incarnation is a trap card with two effects. The one on field lets you revive a Shaddoll in face down defense mode, but its grave effect lets you banish itself and another Shaddoll from grave in order to flip one of your monsters up or down, meaning that you get a quick effect way to flip up your flip monsters, turning some of them into interruptions since some of them have removal effects. El Shaddoll Winda can't be destroyed by card effects and makes it so that each player can only special summon once per turn, so she's gonna look down most decks combos just by being on the field, and she isn't gonna be easy to get rid of. Shaddoll Schism is a continuous trap that can fusion summon by banishing materials from the field and grave. This way we can summon Winda on the opponent's turn while they are trying to make their plays, and if the opponent happens to control a monster with the same attribute as the one you summon, you can send that monster to the grave without targeting. We only play the dark attribute Winda and light attribute Construct for the most part, but it's alright because most monsters that can't be removed with our other removal are going to be light or dark attribute anyway. Everything I've mentioned so far can be set up by El Shaddoll Construct, who on summon will send any Shaddoll card from deck to grave. You could send the Shaddoll Incarnation so you can get that grave effect whenever you want, or you could send Shaddoll Schism so you can add it back with Construct's grave effect. If it's sent to grave, we can add a Shaddoll back row from our grave to our hand. We can make that happen pretty easily by summoning Construct to our extra monster zone, then linking it off into the Link 1 Gravity Controller, which just requires any non-link monster in the extra monster zone. He also can't be destroyed by battle by monsters in the main monster zones, and if he battles a monster in an extra monster zone, then he returns himself and that monster to the extra deck. So our El Shaddoll Construct can set up pretty much anything for us. She can even send our flip monsters to the grave to trigger their grave effects if that's what we need. But if she battles a special summon monster, she destroys that monster at the start of the damage step, so she doesn't even need to worry about stats unless that monster is protected from destruction. So we've established that Construct can set things up for her, but that is assuming that we can get her out in the first place. We're going to need to dedicate a decent amount of our deck to fusion summoning that Construct, and there are many ways to do this, so let's talk about what options we have. In order to play Shaddoll Winda and Schism in the first place, we need to play the archive skill Shadow Weaving Power, which will also put 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion into our deck, and on top of this we can play El Shaddoll Fusion. They are both going to be able to use fusion materials from our hand and field to go into Construct, but they each have their own benefits as well. El Shaddoll Fusion is a quick play spell, so you could use it outside of the main phase to play around the opponent's effect failure, or you could use it during the battle phase to let you attack more, or you could use it on the opponent's turn to dodge removal or trigger your graveyard effects. Shaddoll Fusion, on the other hand, can use materials from your deck if your opponent has any monsters summoned from the extra deck. By playing the 3 Shaddoll Fusion that our skill gives us and 3 copies of El Shaddoll Fusion, we will have a total of 6 fusion spells in our archetype, not including the Shaddoll Schism that we are planning to send from deck to grave. 6 isn't quite enough fusion spells though. We do need to find another way to get our Construct out. However you choose to get Construct out is going to be based on your own personal preference, but there are 3 engines you should consider when building your deck: the Invoked engine, the Magistus engine, and the Black Sheep engine. The Invoked and Magistus engines work very similarly. They each have a monster that you normal summon who on summon will search for a fusion spell, and they can be linked off into Artemis so they can immediately represent a light monster to fulfill Construct's fusion requirement of any light monster and any Shaddoll. They each have different combos you can do to strengthen your board past that, but that is the base purpose of these normal summons. Lunalight Black Sheep is a dark monster, so can be used as fusion material for El Shaddoll Winda. It can also discard itself to search for polymerization, so we can get access to a fusion spell without needing to use our normal summon, so that our normal summon can be spent on setting a flip monster to potentially interrupt the opponent with Incarnation. Regardless of whatever engine you are playing to give you more access to fusion plays in your Shaddoll deck, you need to keep the balance of Shaddoll cards and fusion related cards in mind so you make sure not only do you have good access to fusion spells, but also good access to fusion materials. I've mentioned that the Shaddoll flip monsters have both flip effects and grave effects, but to understand what they can do for us, let's list them off real quick. First of all, the flip effects. Wendy special summons another Shaddoll from deck in face up or face down defense position. Skomata targets a monster on the field and destroys it. Dragon targets an opponent's card and returns it to the hand. Hedgehog searches a Shaddoll back row. Falco special summons a Shaddoll from grave in face down defense position. Chaos special summons a Shaddoll from hand in face up or face down defense position. And lastly, Beast draws 2 cards and discards a card. All of these have their utilities, and you can kind of break their utilities into groups like this. The survival flip effects like Wendy, Falco, and Chaos all have some effect that gets another of your flip monsters onto the board to make it harder for the opponent to attack directly, but also potentially to set up one of the other flip effects. Obviously, Wendy is the best of these since it summons from the deck, but if the flip effect you need isn't in your deck, you can revive it with a Falco instead. And Chaos flip effect, to keep it a buck with you, we aren't even trying to use, we just play him because he's a light attribute for construct. The consistency flip effects, Hedgehog and Beast, getting Hedgehog to search our fusion spell or one of your traps for you is really good in the grind game to keep your plays going as the game goes on, and Beast drawing 2 and discarding 1 is not just good for consistency and follow-up, but also to potentially trigger grave effects since the card it discards is considered to be discarded by a card effect. Lastly, the removal effects, Skomata and Dragon, they both get rid of a card from the field in some way. You might prefer one over the other for the given situation, like Skomata destroying might not be good against a monster with destruction protection or floating, so you might prefer to bounce it with Dragon, but you might not want to give the opponent a resource back, so you might prefer to destroy it with Skomata. I will say though that since flip monsters' flip effects can't be used on the same turn you use their grave effects, you might try to plan to use Skomata's or Dragon's flip effects depending on whether you'll use the grave effect of the other one on the same turn. Next up, and potentially more importantly, the grave effects. Skomata sends another Shaddoll card from deck to grave. Wendy special summons another Shaddoll from deck in face down defense position. Dragon targets and destroys a back row on the field. Hedgehog searches another Shaddoll monster. Falco special summons itself in face down defense position. Chaos sends a Shaddoll monster from hand to grave and makes your monsters gain 100 attack and defense for each of that monster's levels. And lastly, Beast will draw 1 card. It's important to keep in mind that the flip monsters aren't going to be able to use their grave effects on the turn they use their flip effects, so you have to be careful if you are in a position where you are able to try to activate both for the same card. Grave effects can also be broken down similarly to the flip effects. The survival grave effects, Wendy and Falco. Wendy being able to summon from deck in almost the same way as she does as a flip monster helps you get access to whatever utility you need for your situation, and Falco just reviving itself is good so that on the following turn its flip effect can be used to revive something. Just be careful not to try flipping up the Falco the turn you summoned it by its own effect, because it won't work. Falco is a tuner too, so technically you could use it alongside a level 5 beast you revive to go into a level 7 synchro, or if you summoned another level 4, you could go into a level 11 synchro if you wanted, but this is a bit gimmicky and there are more consistent ways to deal with the opponent's board. Dragon is the only removal grave effect, but being able to destroy opponent's back row is great, especially if you can trigger on your opponent's end phase by fusion summoning with Shaddoll Fusion or Shaddoll Schism summoning Construct for its effect to send from deck to grave. The consistency cards Skomata, Wendy, Hedgehog, and Beast are all going to be what gives you your toolbox as the game goes on. Whatever you need, these guys are going to be helping you towards getting them. Skomata being able to send any Shaddoll to grave means that any chance you have to get a Shaddoll in grave, you could send Skomata, and Skomata will send something else to not only deck thin and give you more materials in grave for Schism, but also being able to send spells and traps if needed. Like if you used Shaddoll Fusion, but also want to be able to use Shaddoll Fusion, you could send that so that when your fusion is sent to grave, you could add the fusion to hand and use it since you haven't used it that turn. You could also send Incarnation to grave to flip something up as a quick effect, or you could send Schism to add back with a fusion if Construct's effect to send it got negated. What I'm about to talk about is actually paywalled, so if you haven't fully gone through the newest selection box, this might not be all that helpful for you. But don't worry, there is going to be alternative deck lists shown in the deck building section. With all of our grave effects, this deck can get a lot of advantage by using Armageddon Knight. This guy on summon will send any dark monster to the grave. If we want to send a monster from deck to grave, normally we have to use our Shaddoll Fusion or our Construct, and we are definitely going to be taking advantage of those to get what we need, but also being able to do it with your normal summon is great. If you're going to be playing Armageddon Knight though, you won't really be wanting to play the Invoked or Magistus packages because they will all be competing for your normal summon. So if you are going to play the Armageddon Knight, you should also be playing the Lunar Light Black Sheep package so that you have another way way to search polymerization that doesn't rely on a normal summon. If you aren't convinced about Armageddon Knight, I'll show you what he can do for you. If you don't have any light monsters available, technically you could normal summon one of your Dark Shaddolls and link it off into Artemis. But if you have Armageddon Knight, you can normal summon it, send Squamata to grave, Squamata will then send Wendy to grave, and Wendy can special summon Chaos from your deck face down, and now you have your light attribute and you have Armageddon Knight to be used for a link summon if need be. If you are going second and you have a way to get your fusion play going, but the opponent has back row that you might be scared of, you can summon Armageddon Knight to send Dragon from deck to grave in order to destroy that back row. And if they interrupt the Armageddon Knight, well, that's one less interruption to deal with. If your opponent negates your Construct's effect to send a Shaddoll card to the grave, so that you can't set up your Schism or your Incarnation, then Armageddon Knight can send Squamata, who can then itself send the Schism or Incarnation. If your opponent doesn't negate your construct, well, you still only get to send the Schism or the Incarnation, but you'd still like to have both, so you can use the Armageddon Knight to send Squamata so that you can send the other. If you don't have any way to fusion summon it at all, Armageddon Knight can send Beast to draw a card, which could be a Shaddoll fusion, El Shaddoll fusion, polymerization, or a Lunalight Black Sheep to search for the poly. If you have the fusion spell and a Shaddoll to use as material, but you don't just want to go straight into Winder, Armageddon Knight can send Hedgehog to search the other fusion material you need, and that material could be whatever grave effect you want to trigger when you fusion summon. If you're trying to beat over a bunch of monsters or make it easier to go for game, you could send Squamata from deck to grave and have it send Chaos, so that Chaos can discard a Shaddoll to buff up your field enough to make it easier for you, and you could just do this as just another way to trigger a grave effect from hand to two. It can also be nice to just send Squamata to send Wendy, or just send Falco, so that the Falco can be summoned to your field to give you a really nice protective field. You can also play a copy of Reinforcement of the Army to make it even easier to get access to this guy. He gives you so much power and versatility for his normal summon. This is the type of deck where the game plan itself is pretty simple. Of course, you are trying to set up a Schism to slow the opponent down with Winder, but the ways that you get there require a lot of decision making based on your hand and what you have to play through. And after you've set up your game plan, there's a lot of decisions you have to make about interrupting the opponent, setting up those interruptions, and setting up the ways that you'll be able to follow up. When you're deciding which flip monsters to set for interruption, you gotta think whether it would be better to set Dragon or Squamata, because you may also want to use their grave effects the turn you want to interrupt with them. There may be some situations where you might be able to normal summon a Shaddoll instead of Armageddon Knight to link it off into Artemis, but by doing so, you might also miss out on being able to send something with the Armageddon Knight. But if you have a way to fusion summon using Hedgehog as material, then you could do that instead to search for Chaos, since it is a light monster, and if you have a way to fusion summon again, you can use the Chaos and the Winder to go into Construct, and you could use the skill to put Winder back into the extra deck, since it can also do that to any of the Shaddolls in grave and banished once per duel to keep your resources going. Sometimes you're going to want to use the El Shaddoll fusion as a quick play spell while the opponent is trying to interrupt your plays or during the opponent's turn. If you have the choice to use a different fusion spell before it, then you probably should. That way, if they use Effect Veiler on your Shaddoll construct, you could respond with El Shaddoll fusion to get that construct into the grave so that it isn't negated by Veiler. If you have the right materials in hand, you could also toggle on during your draw phase or standby phase to use El Shaddoll fusion to summon construct so that the opponent can't negate the construct with their Effect Veiler. When multiple effects trigger at the same time in the TCG, OCG, and Master Duel, you are allowed to pick the order in which they go on the chain. In Duel Links, they haven't given us that option yet. However, Shaddoll and some other fusion decks like Lunalights can actually pick the order in which they go on the chain, but in a different way. When you go to fusion summon, if both materials have a trigger effect when they hit the grave, then the order that you select the materials in is going to be the order that they enter the chain in. You can see here that I select one monster as the fusion material and the other monster as the second fusion material. The fusion spell resolves, and after the chain has ended, the new chain begins, and Chain Link 1 is the first fusion material and Chain Link 2 is the second fusion material. Since you can choose the order, you can actually take advantage of this for if you want to play around the opponent's trigger negate. All you have to do is select the effect you want to happen more before you select the effect that you want to happen less. So if the opponent wants to use a negate like Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, it can only respond to the most recent card on the chain, so Chain Link 1 will be safe. At the end of the opponent's turn, you may have a chance to use grave effects to set a Shaddoll from the deck, like perhaps you used El Shaddoll Fusion and in the process got Wendy's effect to activate, or perhaps you flipped up Wendy through battle or through Incarnation Incarnation, and you get to summon something else. In that situation, you have the choice to go for whatever you feel you need most in that situation. But if you don't need anything in particular, you might choose to summon Beast so that you can draw 2 and discard 1 on the following turn or upon another attack to help you draw into more plays. The same thing is true if you can use Falco to summon Beast too. There are going to be cases where you might prefer to use the on-field effect of Incarnation to revive a Shaddoll, even though you can't use it on the same turn as the Grave effect. It being able to revive a Falco or a Wendy for protection is fantastic to help you secure another turn. Technically, Incarnation and Falco can resummon your Shaddoll fusion monsters too, so that if they die, they can add back your fusion spells, and potentially, if you can revive Construct face up with Incarnation, the opponent won't be able to safely attack into it with special summon monsters since they'll just be destroyed anyway. Apart from these things, there are still going to be a lot of opportunities for decision making in this deck, and if you're looking to expand your knowledge of these little things, then I recommend you join the Team 6K community Discord. The link is in the description. Head over to the Shaddoll channel and talk to the Shaddoll experts Aloysius and Youngboy, and they'll be able to help you out. So this is what I believe to be the most optimal build of Shaddoll at the moment. The Armageddon Knight gives you so much power, and the fact that you can more easily search for fusion spells without having to rely on a normal summon with a Black Sheep is great. That said though, I know that not everybody has access to the Armageddon Knights, so you could instead play an Invoked package or a Magistus package based on your personal preference. I'll show deck lists in here, but if you want to learn the intricacies of those particular engines, you can check out these videos here and copy the combos from them. Other than that, the Shaddoll deck itself will still run the same way. Regardless of packages though, your deck is going to be following certain rules in order to get the best consistency and grind game. The consistency reason is you got to play 3 Wendy and 3 Squamata. It isn't that uncommon to use all 3 of each in a game, and even get them back to use them more times because their effects give you access to all the other flip monsters effects, and by playing 3 of each just to open them to make your fusion summons more powerful is important too. Strictly speaking, after that consistency, you only technically need to play 1 Beast, 1 Dragon, 1 Hedgehog, 1 Falco, and the 1 Chaos is optimal but technically optional if you're playing the Magistus or Invoked package. Despite the fact that you can play 1 of each of these, you might also decide to play more copies of Hedgehog and Dragon in order to get their effects off more times for the grind game. You have to play at least 2 copies of Shaddoll Incarnation for the grind. If you only have 1 copy, it's okay, but you will miss it if you need to use it again later on in the duel. And technically, you can play 3 copies of this as well, as it is pretty good for survivability if you open it. You simply gotta play 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion, as getting access to fusion spells in this deck isn't guaranteed. You gotta play as many fusion spells as you can without playing an amount that would brick you. And being able to draw Shaddoll Fusion is awesome just to be able to trigger grave effects on the opponent's turn, summon relevant fusions on the opponent's turn, or to just help you play through or against interruptions on your own turn. After you've got these core cards in the deck and you've put in the engine, there you have your Shaddoll deck. Regardless, you do have to play some amount of light monsters in your deck in case you do want to use the Shaddoll Fusion to use materials from deck, and since Effect Veiler is a light monster, it's good to play, and opening it as a light monster is also helpful because it also allows you to use your normal summon for things other than trying to get a light monster for construct. When it comes to the extra deck, there isn't a huge amount of freedom, but there is some. You really should play 3 copies of Shaddoll Construct. There are going to be many duels where you use it all 3 times, and there are going to be duels where you put it back into the extra deck just to use it a 4th time. You could play 2 copies, but you are going to find yourself missing it in grindier games. You're going to play 1 copy of Artemis so you can convert your Dark Shaddolls into a light monster for construct, and you're going to play 1 copy of Gravity Control to link off your fusions so you can get back your fusion spells. From that point, the rest is personal preference. You could play Black Rose Moonlight Dragon to summon with Falco and Beast so that you can bounce your opponent's monsters. You could play Trishula Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier to summon with Falco, Beast, and a level 4 so you can banish 3 cards from the opponent's field. But like I said earlier, this is really optimistic, and you aren't always going to be able to guarantee those exact materials, even if you can do it somewhat consistently. Much more easily, you can go into Link monsters since they don't require levels, so I've got Nightmare Phoenix to help get through back row, and also to link off the Gravity Controller the turn after the Gravity Controller was summoned, and Burrowlord Dragon as an easy way to deal with difficult boards. And links are also just a helpful way to get rid of Winda on your own turn, because Winda does affect both players, so locking yourself into 1 special summon per turn can hinder you from getting into lethal. Technically speaking, if you are using Shaddoll Squamata to send Schism to grave, or if you already have Schism in hand, then you don't need to go into Construct that desperately, so you could go into Wendigo using using Shaddoll Wendy, since it is a wind attribute. Wendigo can target a monster to make it indestructible by battle from special summon monsters that turn, but like the other Shaddoll fusions, if you fuse it off or link it off, it'll add a Shaddoll back row from grave to hand, adding back the Schism if you need it, or another fusion spell to keep your plays going. There are a lot of complicated ways you can set up your opening play, and Wendigo can technically be involved in some of them just as a stepping stone. When everything comes together, this is what the deck looks like. Aloysius built this particular version of the deck, and if you're looking to get some of his replays, the link to his video on the deck will be at the top of the description. But at the end of the day, guys, I'm not here to tell you how to build your deck, I'm just here to show you how to play it. So let's just get into the replay, shall we? Alright, so for this first replay, we are going first, and I gotta be honest with you guys, Shaddolls can brick. Basically, if you draw only fusion materials or only fusion spells, you are bricking. You need to have a solid balance in your hand. But here we have it. Other than that, the materials don't have to be that specific. So basically, I'm gonna normal summon this Squamata here because I can't summon Beast. But normally, if you are going to make the decision, go based off of which grave effect do you want more. You know what I mean? If this was a level 4 and this was also a level 4, one of them is about to be turned into an Artemis, so we can get a light monster for our construct, but we normally really like Squamata because it can send anything from deck to grave. However, since we can't summon Beast, obviously we can't get the Squamata up, but if the Beast were level 4, then we could summon it instead so that we could get the Squamata effect off. And it's also worth mentioning that the Winder is not a spellcaster, so cannot be turned into Artemis, so you can never choose Winder for this situation. But anyway, going to use my El Shaddoll fusion using Beast and my Artemis to go into construct. Beast is going to trigger as well as Chain Link 2, which is nice chain blocking, but chain blocking doesn't work against Effect Veiler, Chalice, Droplet, stuff like that. It just works against something like a Crystal Link. Going into that Gravity Controller, Construct's Grave Effect is going to give us back that Schism. Cool thing that I have both back row, but really all I need right now is that Schism. I'm going to flip up that Schism. He's going to normal summon. I'm going to use my Schism right off bat. Going into the Winder, using this Squamata from my grave. I'm okay with using Squamata because I got 3 of them in my deck, so it's technically a little bit more sacrificable than the rest. And the Gravity Controller, because it is a dark monster at the end of the day. So now he can only perform one more special summon, so he's going to link summon, and that's his special summon for the whole turn. He gets a bonus normal summon, which is cool, but he's only going to be summoning this. It does float, but that is pretty good. He is going to be able to get these resources back though, which is nice. He's going to set a back row. On end phase, I'm going to use the Shaddoll Incarnation to revive my own Beast, so that next turn I can draw 2 cards and discard a card. So I'm going to draw 2, discard 1. Hedgehog is going to search a dragon for me because I am trying to pop that back row. I'm going to use my Shaddoll fusion using my dragon and my chaos to go into construct. Chaos being a light monster, of course, and the construct is going to be able to send, and the dragon's going to be able to pop. And the Chaos is also going to be able to discard the Wendy's to buff up my board a bit so I can get more damage in. But he is going to tribute his World Chalice to destroy my construct on summon. And I've already used my special summon for the turn because Winder also locks me down. But he also gets to trigger his World Chalice to summon 2 from the deck. And what I could do here, after he summons this and I outback my El Shaddoll fusion, he's going to search for another World Chalice. But what I could do, I could use my Shaddoll Incarnation Engrave, banishing another Shaddoll card to flip down my own Winder so I can get more special summons going. But Winder can't attack directly anyway, and the main special summon I'd be doing is the Schism to get out another construct. Get through. I don't know if I'd be able to do enough damage, so I decided to play it safe anyway, knowing that I'm all good with my Schism and my El Shaddoll fusion. I'm just going to attack in. What's he going to do about a Winder anyway? You know what I mean? Let's see what he can do about a Winder. He's going to summon Draconet, normal summon, special summon, GG's. There's nothing else you can do. You've already done everything. I'm going to flip down my own Beast so I can get more draws, because you can do that. Draw 2, discard 1, normal summon the Armageddon Knight. Is going to send a Hedgehog. Hedgehog is going to search for a Wendy. I'm going to link these 2 off into Nightmare Phoenix so I can get more special summons off. Winder is going to add back a Shaddoll fusion. Doesn't matter, I already have one. The skill is going to put the Winder back into my extra deck, and I can use Shaddoll fusion, fusing off into Wendigo here, and I can use my Wendy to special summon the Squamata. I can use the Incarnation to flip up the Squamata to destroy one of his cards, and then I can link summon into my Borrowload Dragon, prismatic by the way, and then I can use my Shaddoll Schism to summon the Winder, and I'm all good really. Borrowload is going to reduce this guy's attack, and I have to remember to attack in with Winder first because Schism prevents it from attacking directly, and then I can attack directly with Borrowload Dragon, and that's GG's. Okay, so going second here against Witchcrafter. It's not the most competitive deck of all time. However, it does show off kind of a cool thing you have to know about the deck. It's not really so much the matchup here, but more the lesson that we learned. So basically, Hane can quick effect discard a spell to destroy a card. If I plan on normal summoning one of of my Shaddolls to link it off into Artemis, he can just destroy it before I get the Artemis out. So if he's a smart player, that's what he's going to do. I can't have that, so I'm going to have to play around it in a different way. So I'm going to use my Shaddoll Fusion here. He's going to use Patronus, put back the Jenny to search for a spell so he can destroy something right away. I'm going to use the Wendy and the Beast to go into Wendigo here, and the Beast is going to draw me a card. The Wendy is going to summon from deck. Beast is going to draw me a card. I summon the Dragon from deck, and I'm going to set another monster and a Schism, because you can really just go for a flip monster game plan, you feel me? And I probably could have just summoned Wendigo to the extra monster zone, but it isn't that deep. He's going to destroy that Wendigo though. Wendigo is going to add my Shaddoll Fusion back, so well played, bruh. Anyway, he's going to summon his Shmita. He's going to special summon, and upon special summon, I'm going to Veiler the Hane, okay? Because Hane also has the effect to protect everything from targeting. But it's okay, it's the card I wanted to Veiler anyway. The reason I wanted to Veiler it is so that he could not then chain to my Schism. And he can chain to the Schism, but it will be negated. But I'm going to summon my Construct, since it is a light attribute, and it will send the Veer to the grave. It won't be a monster effect sending it to the grave. It'll be a trap effect sending it to the grave, so the Veer won't even be able to negate it. And of course, Construct is also going to be able to send something to grave. He's going to add a spell to hand with a trap. I'm going to send the Incarnation to act as an interruption. So even if you can't send the Incarnation on your first turn, if you can fusion summon Construct on your second turn, then you can send Incarnation that way to turn your flip monster into an interruption. He's going to use Collaboration to make himself able to attack twice. I'm going to use Incarnation banishing Wendy, flip up my Squamata to destroy him. He's going to chain even though he's negated. Get negated, buddy. GG's. All I need to go do is move to attack mode and attack in for game. It's really that easy. He's going to play around a bit, but come on, bruh. You know what I mean? I'm probably going to play around too, since he wants to be a fool. I'm going to go into another Construct for fun. My Construct is going to get back my Shaddoll Fusion. My Hedgehog is going to get me another fusion material, getting myself that Squamata, getting myself that Shaddoll Fusion, sending another Incarnation in case I want to interrupt again with my set copy of Squamata. Easy GG's, bro. Easy GG's. Alright, so I'm going against Cosmos here. They got the E-Telly Sediment and that tin can. On the end of the end phase, I'm going to Veiler it so that he can't use the end phase effect. But, you know, he's still going to be able to tag out from hand. But it's better than being able to tag out from hand and having a +1. You feel me? So he's just going to get out the Dark Eclipser, probably the worst one. But I have the El Shaddoll Fusion. I already have a light monster in hand, so it's no problem. I probably should have toggled on for the draw phase or standby phase, but it is what it is. Going into that El Shaddoll Construct's going to activate, and the Hedgehog is also going to get me a search here. So I'm searching for a Wendy. I'm doing a little bit of a different decision making process here, because I am sending the Incarnation right off bat, okay? Because I'm planning on interrupting the opponent. That is the game plan here. I don't think that Schism is going to get me the job done against this back row. He can only special summon once per turn most of the time anyway, so you know what I mean? But I can get that Schism later, so it's no problem. I also really want to destroy his Dark Eclipser with my Construct effect. By setting up the Schism, I'm not going to have the Construct anymore this turn, so having to wait a whole other turn cycle to do that is a bit of a problem. So that kind of aided my decision to keep the Construct, you know what I mean? But he's going to use his Cosmo Joe. I'm okay with it, because at the end of the day, it's still getting rid of his Cosmo Dark Eclipser. He's going to get a search off, which is cool and all, you know what I mean? But I still have an interruption here. He's got the Tin Can. I'm going to flip up my Wendy to summon a Beast from the deck. Tin Can is going to reveal a Slip Rider, Forerunner, and Dark Destroyer. He's going to add the Forerunner to hand. Not tagging out or anything. I'm going to use my Beast, draw 2, discard 1, Hedgehog, search for a Squamata. Look how easily we gain card advantage with Beast. My goodness. Anyway, Link Summon, going into the Phoenix. Discarding the Veiler because it's not helpful anymore. He's going to use Bust back to the front to revive his Dark Destroyer to destroy my Phoenix. But I'm actually completely fine with him destroying my Phoenix. It's not really my game plan at the end of the day. Shaddoll Fusion, though, is going to get me that Winda out. What I could have done is normal summoned first to turn it into an Artemis and then gone into the Winda. But I'm actually completely fine with just hard going into the Winda, you know what I mean? So Squamata is going to get me the Schism, and the Falco is going to set itself. The Tin Can is going to summon the Forerunner, and the Winda is just going to gonna attack into the Dark Destroyer. He has nothing to float into, so he doesn't float. That's not the fact. He actually has more Forerunners in his deck. The reason he can't special summon anymore is because he's already special summoned once that turn, even though it's my turn, and the wind is gonna prevent him from doing anything else. So I have a really good protective field here. I'm hoping that he kills my Winder so I can add back my Schism. It's a difficult decision he has to make, but if he doesn't, I'm just gonna link it off. I'm gonna get back my Schism. He's going to attack into my Falco, and Falco is going to resummon the Beast. Yes, the Beast is coming back. See how much advantage the Beast can give us. Flip summon, draw 2, discard 1, discarding the Dragon to destroy that back row. Oh my goodness, just a Beast, making it very easy to follow up, bro. I'm gonna set my Schism, I'm gonna set my Squamata, I'm gonna attack into his Farm Girl. Now he just has this Forerunner and a hell of a lot of life points, top decking a back row. I'm gonna go into Schism, banishing a light and a dark from my grave to go into the El Shaddoll construct. Since Forerunner is a light monster, Schism is gonna send it without targeting, even though it is untargetable. And also, I'm gonna send a Dragon to get rid of that back row. Wow, look at that. Look how quickly we gain that card advantage back. This is such a fun control deck, bro. My goodness. Gonna go into Gravity Controller. Since Construct can't attack directly, since it was summoned by the Schism, might as well. Going to attack, attack, attack. And on the final attack, I'm gonna chain my El Shaddoll Fusion just to show that I could, even if he had more life points. Squamata's gonna send, and Construct's gonna send. I'm gonna get a Fusion Engrave and a Incarnation Engrave, attacking directly. When this deck wins, it wins hard, guys. The big elephant in the room these days is that pretty much every deck in the game loses to Tachyons, at least at the time of recording this video. You can beat them if you have a specific ass hand, but vast majority of the time, you're just gonna get screwed over. That said though, if you can stick a Winder on board before Tachyon gets their plays going, they're gonna be forced into a situation where they have to draw the out for it, and not all of them even play an out to it in the first place. Regardless of all that, Shaddoll's is a really interesting and thought-provoking deck to play. There are a lot of decisions you can make to test how good of a player you are. This is really the kind of deck that can make you a better duelist the more and more you play it. But yeah guys, be sure to let us know how you feel about Shaddoll's in the comments, which Shaddoll is your favorite, and if you have any questions about the deck, be sure to leave them in the comments and we can talk about it. Talk to Aloysius or Youngboy in the Discord about it. The link is in the description, and if you like the video, then slap like now, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell to get notified every time we make a new video. Have yourselves a good one, guys, and I've been Undead from Team 6K, signing out.
Hey, why they gotta hate on me? I done got me 250,000 views and they still saying they low-key. They ain't wanna come work with the kid, but I'm flexing with Zay on beats. How they ask for a spot at the gym, but they leave all the weight on me. I don't ask them to wait on me. They would ask where they gon' be with a song if they wanted the weatherman. I ain't ask them to pay no fees. She was homeless and needed a spot. I ain't ask her to pay no lease. I ain't ask her to say no please. I ain't ask her to make no cheese. Scream fake but it ain't on me. Got clean so it ain't no streets. Why green if it ain't no keeps? Brought cream so it ain't no beef. My team say it ain't no chief. My demon they hang on me. They seemingly ain't no peace. I seen him, he ain't no beast.